Welcome back to Afternoon Live. We hear a lot about being our best self, but what exactly does that mean? Our next guest has questions you can ask yourself each day to make sure you are showing up as who you want to be. We welcome the author of Want Yourself, Shift Your Self-Talk and Unearth the Strength in Who You Were All Along, podcaster Katie Horwitch. Thanks for joining us, Katie.
I'm so happy to be here with you today.
So we're really talking about setting intentions before you even step outside the door each day, and that self-talk that can turn so negative sometimes. How do we stop ourselves from doing that?
Yeah, so I always like to start with what is this self-talk thing that we talk about? Self-talk is the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves as we walk through the world that informs not only who we are, but who we are to other people and who we are going to be in the future. So self-talk isn't inherently good or bad. It's information. It's what we do with that information that matters and informs what we do next and next and next. So it's really important to make sure that the story that you're telling yourself, your self-told story, if you will, is one that is going to help you be proactive and not reactive.
Okay, so you have a list of 7 questions to either start your day or before you're heading to an event. Where should we start?
Yeah, so I always say you can't go where you don't know you're going. So in the book, I give people sort of a roadmap to live the life that they know they're meant to live and be the person they know they're meant to be. The interesting thing is that this is built in the micro moments of life. Like you said, you're walking out the door every single day. And so I have an exercise in the book that's called pre-paving. And that is an exercise that basically helps you plan for where you want to go. And there are about 7 questions that you can ask yourself each day to get really clear on those.
And some of them are super simple. How do I want to look
Yeah.
and how do I want to sound? But even just a few words, those can have a big impact on setting us up for success, even a few hours after you ask them yourself.
Totally. So, like you said, how do I want to look? How do I want to sound? How do I want to act? These are things that sometimes we don't think about before we go into anything from a larger situation that feels like it carries a lot of weight, maybe like a job interview or a really important conversation, or just, how do I want to experience this day? And then after that, I ask people to get really clear on how they want to feel after that situation, that day, that conversation is done. So, how do I want to feel after? Because that's the point. I know that I've experienced this so many times just personally in my own life where that negative self-talk can start to loop.
That makes a lot of sense, and something you don't often think about as you're stepping into something. Where do I want to be when I come out of it? This is interesting too. What are the 1 to 3 points I want people to hear? That can be so helpful, especially in a work situation, heading into a big meeting or something, getting your brain in that space to really focus on what you want to project.
Yeah, I love that question especially because a lot of times, like you said, in let's say a work meeting, when we're going in and maybe there's a lot of voices at the literal table, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of opinions. A lot of times it can be easy to get swept up in sort of the wave that is around you and the cycle of talk that is going on around you. But if you've gotten clear on, okay, these are the 1 to 3, we're not going to 10 things. These are really, really simple points that I want to make sure are heard in this scenario. Then you can start to feel a sense of groundedness within yourself instead of trying to fit in. You feel like, okay, I belong here and I know what I'm going to say. I don't necessarily know how it's going to come out, but I'm going to make sure that I stand by my own side and I get those points heard.
And how do you recover if, despite your best intentions, things don't go as planned and you end up feeling not so great about an interaction? How do you stop the negative self-talk at that point from creeping in?
Yeah. So I always am a fan of sort of preventative measures, if you will. So the last step of this pre-paving exercise is what are 3 anchor words that I can ground myself in no matter what happens. So even if you're thrown off track or you don't get those points in, these are words that you go into any situation in life in that you already believe about yourself. So that could be something like, I am worthwhile. I am intelligent. I am kind. I am enthusiastic. And so when those moments happen, because life will always keep lifing
Mm-hmm.
and we're not always going to be able to control every single thing, what we're able to do is come back to those anchor words, grounding us in who we are so that we can take those steps forward to be proactive instead of simply reacting to what just happened and maybe writing a story that wouldn't serve us in the long run.
Yeah, life will throw us curveballs no matter how prepared we are. You also going back to that point of how do I want to feel exiting a situation? There's also this question, how do I want people to feel after they've left me? That seems mutually beneficial for you and whoever you're interacting with.
I love that part because it sort of brings the community aspect into play. A lot of times when we think of our self talk, we are thinking of it as this sort of isolated, one person only in my brain experience. But in order to shift your self talk in a real lasting way, that means that you're starting with the shift of the self, and then the talk is symptomatic and comes up. So it's not just about finding yourself on the inside, it's about being yourself out loud and being able to be intentional on, well, what type of interaction do I hope to create? Because then you can live with an integrity within yourself, and it gives you an easier way to pivot when maybe things go astray. So we're not always going to be able to control all things, but we can control some things, and it's those things that we get to choose, how we move forward with it.
I want to mention your book again before we let you go. Want Yourself, Shift Your Self-Talk and Unearth the Strength in Who You Were All Along. Thank you for joining us today, Katie.
Thank you so much. I had the best time with you. Thank you for having me on.
Great talking with you, and we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.